Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Sling Paint Gaming. I'm Jim. First off, two things. I apologize for my voice. I'm fighting a bit of a cold right now, so there may be some choppy editing if I have to cut out coughing fits. Second, I apologize for the messy background. This is my office/workshop, and I'm in the middle of reorganizing it, so this is just a jumble of figures right now, and this is just a jumble of spare parts. So today we're going to talk about a ship that is near and dear to my heart. Those of you who have spoken to me both in person and online know how much I loved in first edition what we called then the BSF-17 bomber, which we now know as the MG-100 Starfortress. I have no idea where FFG came up with the name BSF-17, because even in the Last Jedi visual dictionary and all that stuff, it was the MG-100 Starfortress. First cough. So, in second edition, the Starfortress is vastly improved. We're going to talk about one pilot in particular. The pilot we're going to talk about, and actually the reason we're going to talk about him, is that he's the only pilot whose pilot ability is brand new to second edition. All of the other named pilots, their pilot abilities were brought over from first edition, like Finch Dallow, for instance, is the old Crimson Specialist pilot ability. So today we are going to be talking about Edon Kappehl. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. We're going to call him Edon Kappehl. So, Edon's ability, first off, Edon Kappehl, there's not a whole lot of information about who he is. I know that he, like all of the named pilots from the Starfortress, appeared in this novel, Cobalt Squadron. I'm sure many people skipped this one because Rose is the main character, but it's actually a pretty good book. So, Edon Kappehl, his ability is, after you fully execute a blue or white maneuver, if you have not dropped or launched a device this round, you may drop a device, not launch. So, we'll get back to his ability in a second, but first I want to talk about the Starfortress in general, the chassis, and how it's built, and how it's different than first edition. In terms of the dial is virtually identical. The only change to the dial is that the three banks are now red as opposed to white. Same amount of blues, still the red stop. So, very similar dial. So if you've flown it in first edition, you basically know how it flies in second edition. The big change for the Starfortress is that while it still has its two-die turret, it has a bow tie turret, so it's got facing both directions. It also has a three-die primary forward. So what you have here is the potential for this ship to have a 270-degree firing arc, which is the closest we have in this game to the old-school 360 arcs. So basically, if you put your bow tie arc facing the sides, and then you have your primary arc out the front, my fingers aren't doing this properly, but anyways, you know what I'm getting at. You've got side arcs covered with your bow tie arc, and then you have a primary arc. So you got 270 degrees. The only shot you don't have set up that way is a shot out the rear, which is pretty huge to have the ability to cover that much of the board with valid shots. And of course, with the bow tie being a primary, it's not range restricted like if you equip like an ion turret on the Ghost, for instance. It doesn't have that 1 to 2 range restriction. It's 1 to 3 like a standard firing arc. So that's the big change. The other big change is you have a reload action. I don't actually recall whether first edition had a reload. I think it didn't, but I have actually thrown out all of my first edition stuff, so I can't actually check for you right now. So, getting back to Edon and his ability. So, basically, assuming that you haven't dropped anything or launched anything during the system phase, if you do a blue maneuver or a white maneuver, you can drop a device. Again, the wording is, as with most FFG stuff, the wording is pretty specific. it says that you may drop a device, so you can't do a 2-bank and then trajectory simulate or something. So you have to drop the device. It also says a device, not a bomb. Finch Dallow's ability, the old Crimson Specialist, says when you drop a bomb, you can place it along your base. This is a device. So that means mines, that means Connor nets, that means even, you know, proton bombs, the usual. So why is this good? Okay. For those of you who are new to X-Wing, who didn't have a ton of experience in first edition, that either you just got into it in second edition or you played it ages ago and got back into it for second. In first edition, when you were dropping a bomb or launching a bomb or dropping any kind of device, you either did it as you revealed your dial or you spent an action to do it. In second edition, there's a specific phase to do this, and this phase happens before anyone moves. So you set your dials, then it's the system phase where all bombs and mines and all of that happens. Then the activation phase, and you fly around and you do your actions and all that. So basically what Edon Kappehl does is he does first edition bombing in second edition. So after he's moved, he drops a bomb, drops a device, that kind of thing. And the important thing is he doesn't have to spend an action to do it, so he still has an action after that. Now, as to why this is good, in terms of bombs, like proton bombs, ion bombs, whatever, they detonate at the end of activation. So they will still detonate in the phase that he is deploying them. So it's not like... for instance, not Rose Tico, Page Tico. Golf number 2. Page Tico, who allows you to drop a device, drop a bomb after you perform an attack. Theoretically good, but you're attacking at initiative 3. And if you drop a proton bomb in the combat phase, the proton bomb is just going to sit there until the end of the next activation phase. Whereas with Edon Kappehl, his movement is still part of the activation phase. So you can drop a bomb after you move, and that bomb will detonate after everybody else has moved in that same phase. Where I think, in my opinion, this can be really interesting is, I mean, you're moving at initiative 3, so it's not... You know, there's still the chance of like a Darth Vader or something, or Poe or whatever, more likely quick draw, dodging your bomb completely and it not having any effect. But there's also the possibility of being able to catch someone twice with a bomb. With a mine. See, I'm thinking specifically of proximity mines here. So let's say you're up against another Initiative 3 ship. So that ship moves, and let's say they have initiative. So that ship moves. You do your blue or white maneuver, and you then decide, okay, I'm dropping a proximity mine. You drop a proximity mine right on top of them. Instantly 1 damage, and they roll 2 dice to see what else they do. Now, you have both moved, which means you are in the position that you are going to be in at the start of the next activation phase, at the next system phase, which means they are still going to be there, and you will have the ability in that system phase to then hit them with a second proximity mine, doing another damage and another roll 2 to see what happens. So in that kind of a situation, you can double bomb the same ship. It's not going to work the same with, say, a proximity mine, simply because the proximity mine goes off at the end of activation, whereas the proton bomb goes off at the end of activation, whereas the proximity mine goes off as soon as it has something touch it. So you move, you drop the proton bomb on someone, as long as they've already moved, that's where they're going to be at the next system phase, when you drop the second proximity mine. See, I have a bit of a cold, so I'm keep screwing up proximity mine and proton bomb. So that is, I think, the strength of this ship is the fact that you can basically, this particular pilot, Edon Kappehl, you essentially do first edition bombing. You bomb after you move, not in the system phase. Of course, the restriction for that is, the couple of restrictions for it is, you can't drop a bomb in the system phase if you're going to be doing it after you move. Because it specifically says if you haven't dropped or launched, you may do this. The other thing is, the other restriction is, it specifically says you may drop one device. So it's basically excluding the option of doing a 2-bank and then launching a proton bomb with trajectory simulator. While that restriction is, I know there are people who love trajectory simulator. I get it. It's a really strong upgrade, but at this point, trajectory simulator is not hyperspace legal anyways. So there are some high-level events where you won't even be able to use that. So it not being an option here is not that big a deal as far as I'm concerned. Now, when we do these pilot reviews, we usually talk about things that are auto includes. I think at this point anyway, the Starfortress is a little bit too new to be able to say that you absolutely must include this upgrade on it. I mean, obviously bombs are strong on it because that's what it's designed for. I've flown it only in 4 games so far, and not all with this particular pilot. I've actually found that veteran turret gunner is really good on them, and flying it that way, you fly your bow tie front back, because then obviously you have the double tap. You do your 3 dice primary, and then you follow it up with veteran turret gunner at the same arc. That's been good. For Edon Kappehl in particular, like I said, proximity mines are my personal choice for him, because unless you're going up against a lot of low initiative ships, they're going to be moving after you've already dropped that bomb. Even if you drop your bomb after you move, unless you're up against, say, like a bunch of like initiative 2 like TIE fighters or something like that, they're still going to be able to move away from that bomb for the most part. Whereas proximity mines, it hits when it hits. It'll, if they move through it, it goes off. If it lands on them, it goes off. It doesn't wait till the end. There are some interesting newer upgrades from the Resistance kit that are pretty good on these. Paige Tico gunner. Again, I'm not hugely enamored with her ability. At least the one portion of her ability. The other, her ability is that when you fire, when you do a primary attack, you can either rotate your arc or drop a bomb. The arc rotation, I think, is probably, unless you're flying, even if you're flying the Initiative 4, I mean, he's still just an Initiative 4. I would say that the arc rotate part of her ability is better, simply because there are 2 gunner slots on the bomber, which means you can theoretically have Paige and a veteran turret gunner. So you keep your 270 arc to see where everyone is, but then if you shoot out your primary arc, trigger Paige, rotate your bow tie so that you've got them both pointed at the front, and then you trigger veteran turret gunner and you do your double tap. It's kind of like, I won't say it's almost like Luke, like a cheap Luke gunner, because it's not quite that strong, but similar idea. Other than that, I mean, Rose Tico can be good on this platform, simply because she's simply good on everything. I know people have a hate on for Rose for I feel no real reason, but that's an entirely different video. Rose, you can spend any of your die results while attacking or defending to acquire target lock on whoever else is engaged in that moment. That includes a blank. So if you've got, say, Veteran Turret Gunner, you've got both your arcs points out front. Your first attack, you roll 2 hits and a blank. Well, you spend that blank, you get a target lock on the target, which you can then spend on your Veteran Turret Gunner shot if you need to. Same thing with, on defense. I mean, you're only rolling 1 die, so if you roll a blank or if you roll a focus and you want to keep your focus for offense, you just spend that and get a target lock. So those can be really strong. But again, for Edon Kappehl in particular, my preferred loadout for him is simply proximity mines and Veteran Turret Gunner. I'm sure I will load him up with all kinds of different things as time goes on, but in the 2 games I've played with him so far, I've actually really liked the proximity mines thing. I was able to only once do the double bomb thing, but when I did it, it actually took out a ship completely. So it can be strong. The downside to the ship, and this is true, I've said this many times, the downside is it's a 1 agility ship, and it's not very fast. So you're not doing any arc dodging, and if you're up against a list that has a lot of proton torpedoes, you're screwed. There's no way around it. This thing does not survive proton torpedoes well. So I think that the best option for it, I think one of the best options for it is having Rose Tico on there, simply because your defensive rolls against proton torpedoes will not mean a whole lot, generally speaking. So the ability to then say, okay, screw it, doesn't matter, I'm spending that green die and I'm getting a target lock on you because I'm going to double tap you when it's my turn to shoot, is pretty strong. That did actually, the double tap with the target lock did actually have a pretty substantial effect in a couple of my games. So that's it for this one, because I feel my voice starting to go again. So I'm going to wrap it up before I can no longer speak. Thanks for watching. As usual, like, subscribe, comment, ask questions, visit our Facebook group. Like I've said many times, I'm far more active on the Facebook groups than I am answering questions in YouTube comments, mostly because I'm not used to doing it. So by all means, ask questions, join the Facebook groups, join the discussion, and thanks for watching.